Let's get in a word now. Let me hand it over now to Rahul Kamal, TV Today Network's managing editor, who is outside the Terracota Warriors Museum, or a little distance away from the Terracota Warriors Museum. Rahul, it's over to you.
Thanks, Sanket. We're here at the Terracota Warriors Museum in Xian. The security not allowing us in, as I said, but we're getting word about what's happening inside the museum, where the Prime Minister seems to have taken quite a liking for the Terracota Warriors. They are quite a sight. Our crews were here looking at the museum and the artifacts here, and it is a very fascinating structure. Let me tell you a bit about the man you see on the screen behind you. This is Emperor Qin, the first emperor of China in the way that we see it, or at least most parts of China. He's the first one who brought all the warring communities together, all the small principalities brought together as China. He's the one who created the first avatar of the Great Wall of China, and that's where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is. This is a huge tourist attraction. All the people that you see around you are those who are waiting for Prime Minister Modi now to leave so they can get their tickets and go inside the museum and check the artifacts for themselves. This is about half an hour, 40 minutes away from the main city, and there's some very interesting artifacts that you see inside. And what also, Sanket, is interesting inside the museum is that the different terracotta statues are lined up according to their importance in the emperor's scheme of things. Now, Emperor Qin's view was that once he dies, he wanted a big army, the army of the Terracota Warriors, to protect him in his afterlife. And that's why this museum, which is really a funerary artifact, a funerary art design, was created. However, soon after his death, there were all kinds of civil strife and problems in China. The kingdom didn't stay together as one, which essentially meant that the entire museum didn't get built the way the king wanted, and only a part of it got built. It was in 1974, not very far from where we are right now, where a farmer was excavating in his fields looking for water, and that's when the first terracotta warrior was found, and that's how they started digging even deeper and found more of these warriors. Only about 5% of the entire terracotta army has so far been excavated. They've now stopped, but this really is a fascinating story of how this ancient museum, these ancient warriors going back 2 centuries before Christ, were actually discovered and brought out to the modern world.
Why did, Rahul, I'm itching to ask this, why did Modi choose this? Only because of the fact that this is so amazing? Or was there a specific reason why he wanted to start as this, with, being his first engagement?
So there are 2 reasons. One, Xian is like Gujarat in India. This is where the current ruling dispensation in Gujarat comes from. This is one of the things that tourists love doing over here, Sanket. They go and they stand right behind the terracotta warrior. There's also this thing that you can put on your head. I'll just bring it and I'll show you. There's a sword that you can brandish. All kinds of photo opportunities here available. So yeah, just one second. So no, this is a photo opportunity, Sanket, and that is essentially it. Xian is Gujarat in some senses. 3 of the senior most leaders in the Central Military Commission, in the Politburo, come from Xian, and therefore it's important for Prime Minister to be here. But that apart, it's also the significance is the fact that the Indian Prime Minister hosted the Chinese President in Gujarat, and now the Chinese President is reciprocating. But these photo opportunities and these cutouts, which are fascinating to get pictures and selfies clicked at, that apart, there is some significance to what we're seeing, because unlike Modi, who's fond of presidential style diplomacy, of a certain flamboyance in the picture opportunities that he creates on his international visits, the Chinese president has been very, very low-key. He hasn't traveled, Sanket, outside of Beijing to receive any world leader. This is the first time he's here in his own native province of Xian, spending about 6 hours with Prime Minister Modi, and there is a certain significance to that. And remember, as per protocol, and the Chinese are very particular about protocol, it's actually Li Qiang, who's the Premier of China, who should be spending time with Prime Minister Modi. Instead, you've got the President himself who's come down to Xian. He'll be spending time through this afternoon, about 6 hours, with the Indian Prime Minister. And that really shows how seriously they're taking India at this time. And there are a couple of things. One, okay, that's the sword I was talking about. That's one of our colleagues who's on board the journalist bus. That's the sword that he's brandishing right now. Can I just show this to our viewers for 1 second, please? Just give me this. Yeah, that's the photo opportunity. Sanket, so if you bring your family and your children here to the museum, this is what you ought to be doing. And getting these pictures. Frankly, that's really all that we can do, given that the Prime Minister is in and the security here in China wouldn't let us anywhere close to the museum. So you make do with what you can. That's the Terracotta Museum. So essentially, you've got these high-octane picture opportunities, and the idea is to showcase how India and China are coming together. But these picture opportunities apart, Sanket, there are real problems. In the September trip of President Xi, they announced there will be 2 industrial parks that will be set up, one in Vadodara, one in Pune. On both those industrial parks, progress has been real slow. Only about 20% of the land has been acquired. No Chinese investment is coming. Remember, he'd announced $20 billion of Chinese investment coming into India. None of that is trickled in, and the Chinese are beginning to get slightly impatient. They're saying, where is the action on the ground? And those are some of the issues. From an Indian perspective, Sanket, there's a $44 billion trade deficit with China. While China is India's biggest trading partner now, a lot of this is essentially Indian traders coming to provinces like Yiwu, Guangdong, and buying commodities in bulk, taking them back to India, selling them in Gafar Market, in Sarojini Nagar, Fashion Street in Mumbai. So it's not really an equal relationship. $12 billion is what we export to them, $44 billion is the deficit coming in, and that's a big problem where Modi will be under pressure to try and find a way to counter it. Indian traders say that they want to send generic medicines, for example, to China, and that's a big problem. They haven't been able to do so. Those are some of the issues beyond these optics. It's fun and nice to stand in front of the terracotta warrior, put your hand out, hold the sword, but that apart, those are some of the real issues that the Prime Minister needs to focus on, Sanket.
Absolutely, and you being headlines today's terracotta warrior, most certainly too. Rahul, a lot has to be or is actually expected from the first visit as well, from this particular visit to the Xian province. Take us through what really, will be the business engagement by the end of today as far as Modi's talks with the president is concerned. I believe that there is an economic zone over there in Xian, which is, sorry?
High-tech economic zone.
There is a high-tech economic zone, Mr. Joshi actually points out, which will be an area of interest for India as well.
The Chinese. That's right. Xian is being developed in some senses, from what people here are telling us, as China's Bengaluru. And they're trying to make this their IT city. It's one of the 4 ancient capitals of China. It's one of the big cities in this part of the country. But they're trying to now develop this as the IT city. There's a big IT hub. Wipro, other companies looking very carefully at expanding their presence in the Chinese market. That's what China is trying to develop. But there again, it's China having its act in order, building on what they have. Whereas the key question from India's perspective, the question to ask the Modi Sarkar is, how can the Made in China model help Make in China? Because Make in India, because remember, Chinese have huge excess capacity and they've already got massive capacities which are not being utilized. So they would want products to be manufactured over here. Instead, India is saying, no, you come and manufacture in India. So what will the Prime Minister be able to achieve when it comes to doing that?
Absolutely.
That's the key. And there isn't much forward movement. Remember, the Chinese talk less, do more. In India, we talk more, but very little, unfortunately, gets done.